Hi, this is JJ here at Once. What you're about to see is some very special content created just for you by the Once family. Art and community are our priorities here at Once. We'd rather be with you in person, but what we can do right now is create virtual experiences for us to all enjoy together. No, it's not the same as being at a live show, but that doesn't mean that it's not a way to enjoy each other's company and entertainment. So, without further ado, a few house notes. The bathrooms are in the back, on the left. No flash photography, please. And as always, no crowd surfing. Enjoy the show. Good evening, good evening. Hello and welcome.
Hey,
Joyce.
how's it going?
Welcome to Let's Get Critical, the show where I put the spotlight on you. I know, right? This is going to be so awesome. So my guest today, Joyce Raskin, amazing band member of Scarce, and now the host is it Seana? Seana, right?
Seana.
Okay, I didn't want to pronounce your name wrong. Of a remarkable, wonderful feminist podcast, The Red Jumpsuit, which I love and was honored to be a part of. It was so super fun. So what we're going to do now is we're going to turn things around a little bit and give you a chance to talk about some of your experiences as a interviewer.
Oh.
So I think that people who interview people have a lot of great stories, and you don't usually hear them because they're so busy talking about the other people that you don't hear like, oh, and I did this.
Right.
So I'm excited about that, and I'm also excited for you to tell me a little bit about what brought you to where you're at now, because you didn't come to, I think of this as journalism or criticism or whatever you want to call it. You did not come to this, like you didn't go to school for journalism.
I don't have a license for any of this shit.
You're not licensed to journalize. How dare you critique?
Dare you? No, and for us, it was funny because basically neither one of us were playing at the time. There were no good songs coming. There was no, we were just kind of in this weird place. And so Sean and I were like, oh, let's just do a podcast. Let's just do this. And then we can talk to other people. We were like, I want to talk to other musicians because I feel like without the shows, we don't get to do that anymore. And Sean and I just felt like adding another voice for podcasts is not needed, but adding another voice to the conversation about females being more represented is worth it. And I think what I'm super excited about now is that we've also connected now with a bunch of other groups online that are doing similar things, like this Dora Singh podcast in England, and they're involved in this group called Loud Women. It's just like there's a whole network. And JJ, I feel like you and I experienced the world of music when it was still really hard for women. I mean, it still is, but it was like ridiculous.
Now it's so easy. It's
right. No, I mean, it's, yeah. But
very hard.
Yeah.
Very hard. I did an interview not an interview, but I was on a panel a couple of days ago, and I felt like I needed to talk as little as possible so that I wasn't taking up too much time. And I actually felt a little bit about the other panelists, who of course were men. I felt a little bit like they were sucking all the air out of the room. And I was like, oh, they don't make any space. And then I was like, hold on a second. I didn't take any space. It's not that they weren't making space. It's that I was sitting there quietly in the corner, letting them talk because oh, well, I shouldn't take up too much space.
Right.
And it's amazing to me because it's so bred in. It's so deep in the bone, this stuff that we do. And then, I was feeling like, oh, they're taking up all the space. And then I thought, I never asked for that space. I never even tried for it.
Yeah. Because you're right. I mean, I think for, you and I are basically the same age. And we grew up in the 70s and 80s where it was like, I feel like you were definitely still told girls should be quiet, girls shouldn't make noise, it's definitely
Yeah.
still that much. And I think, it's funny because part of the red jumpsuit thing too was to connect with all the women in particular that I'd been on the road with. That's what we started with. And same thing with Shauna, like because she was in the Swirlies, I was in Scarce. And we were like, well, let's talk to some of these women and see how they felt. Did they feel the same way? Because back then, I think we had talked about this, you and I too, before, where it's like in the 90s, it really felt like they pitted us against each other.
Yeah.
We weren't allowed to have all these awesome women on Win Bill.
There's no question.
It was like,
There's
no, there's one girl. Oh, that's enough, and I think the way I thought about it, and Shauna did too, it's like we were just one of the guys. We didn't really try to be girly or this or that. We were just like, oh, I just want to be accepted as a musician. But that never was the case. Like, and I think about too, like I have a lot of guy friends who made it, like, have a career and, are doing really well. And they were started at the time I did. And a lot of the women I did, but women, I feel like the women in the music scene stepped down to go, okay, well, I have to like raise a family now, or I have to like get a job and be responsible or whatever. And I think part of that is that I feel like the rock community never really supported those women. Like there wasn't this like, nobody would go around and talk about these bands. Like I actually, in fact, I'm doing a little roundabout, but the next stage of Red Jumpsuit, Shauna actually came up with the idea, and she was like, kind of similar to what you were saying, where like, I didn't ask for the space. Well, my other thing was I want to interview some guys that I know in music. And I want to ask them how they felt about it a little bit, because I know how we felt about it. And I know how we felt left out. But I was curious, was it them actually doing that? Was it our imagination, all this stuff? And so far, we've only done one of those. The interviews aren't coming out yet. They'll probably come out in the new year because we're so far behind right now. But it was really interesting to have this conversation because they were both, we interviewed Nick Solomon of the Bevis Front and Paul, who plays guitar with him. And we've known them for a long time. Every time we went to England, we stayed at their place. We've toured with them, played with them, and all that stuff. And so I was really comfortable having that conversation with them. But what was so interesting is they were like, yeah, we just never understood why there weren't more women. We wanted more women. But I know that wasn't the case with every guy. Like, but it was very interesting because they were like, yeah, why is that? And I sort of said to them, it'd be really cool. What I had them do actually is I said, pick 5 women each, that any genre of music, any era, I said that you think were super influencing to you. And talk about them and give some history about them, just like you would to any of those other dude bands that, usually do, because you're all commiserate, without even knowing it. Like, I don't blame them. I just think you're right, JJ. It was like,
spread into the bone.
But at the same time, I feel like, our goal this year with Red Jumpsuit is to interview those male musicians who did make it, who do have influence and power, and say, hey, because I've talked to a bunch of people that I'm, trying to line up right now, but a few of them were like, oh, I'm kind of afraid. I don't want to talk about that because of the Me Too. I mean, it was interesting. Like these successful men, I'm like, really? That's interesting because, you should be able to talk about it, And I even had a few guys say to me, yeah, we were jealous. We felt threatened by girls playing music. I was like, wow. So we learned a lot of things, and I'm excited for that to come out in the new year.
I think there was also, it wasn't just that, I mean, this is sort of, I think what you were saying, but that there actually is this almost like setup for women to not be able to work together because they're told that they can't work well together. Like, oh, that woman, she's really awful to other women.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
you're told this, you know, it's
Yep.
like, oh, did you know? And so of course, then it's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
So you have women sort of being catty to each other because they've kind of been set up for failure to begin with.
Yep.
And I felt that very, very much working in music in the 90s.
Right.
And that like fear of people thinking that somehow you were weak or, you know, you have to be like
tough.
Absolutely. Absolutely
right.
tough. Like
no girly shit, no bullshit. Like yeah.
Can be awful.
Yeah.
And you have to just power through it because that's what the guys do.
Yeah.
Well, they don't.
But they don't. But they do. No.
They do,
Yeah.
but they don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, actually,
So,
I have to give a shout out to the Whistle Stop ladies
oh
because
yeah.
I just think what they're doing is so important. And I tell them all the time, I'm like, this was a community that I dreamed about in the 90s. Like, it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And I hope that grows.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I agree. I love it. It's a really, really cool community of women working together. It's awesome. I'm going to rewind a little bit because I didn't quite get out of you what I'm trying to dig out.
Oh, I know. I'm sorry.
So
you know me.
what I'm hoping to understand and what I'm sort of poking at here a little bit. Where did you grow up?
Oh, sure. I grew up in Washington, D.C.
Okay. And you
city.
grew up in punk rock.
Yes. And go-go.
You're soaked in it. And what?
And go-go music.
And go-go music.
Yes.
Okay.
Do you know about go-go music?
Is that a DC thing?
Yes, it is. Actually, it's really cool. It was like kind of live funk, hip hop, kind of urban, but it was only in DC. It was really interesting. They'd have like the horns. It was like almost like jazz, but it was, you would go to these shows and you would dance your ass off. You would just could not stop dancing. The drummer's playing the entire time.
That sounds so much better.
So much fun.
Garage rock, which is
right.
Like
loving community. And I was definitely the minority. I mean, it was like when I was living in DC, it was Chocolate City. That's what they called it. And so I'd be like one of the few white people there, but everybody was cool. You know, we were all just dancing, having a good time. And I really loved that about DC. I got to go to go-go shows at clubs like the 930 Club, but the old 930 Club. And DC Space was around, and there were all these places I could go as a 14-year-old in the city and go to a show without drinking and not worrying about that. And it was awesome. Like
that's so cool. So they were all ages shows?
All ages shows. And there'd be like 20 bands and you pay $5. And I lived in Adams Morgan, which is right near Mount Pleasant and all these like, you know, sort of this one area, which was down and out. And now, of course, my parents are living in like the fanciest neighborhood they've ever seen. But the punks like lived in that, like the neighborhood over from ours. Like they had all the punk rock houses, like with Ian MacKaye and all those guys living in group homes. So all the shows were in that neighborhood at this place called the Wilson Center, which is funny. I think I went to preschool there in this place. Like it was literally around the corner. It was like this big old church. And it was like a scene. Everybody would go and hang out like equally to see the bands, but just to hang out and see people. And it was like,
sure,
so awesome. Like I had such a fun teenagehood, and I think you did too, growing up in Cambridge.
Yeah, well, even more recently, we've had that kind of vibe going on, and I really miss it. Once is a lot like that. I really miss it. Yeah,
totally.
So what I'm curious about, because
what gives me a license to interview people.
Yes. So in Scarce, you were being interviewed. People were asking you about your vast wealth of knowledge at the tender age of 22 or whatever you were, because you knew everything about.
Oh, I was so together. Yeah. No. Read my book. I was not together.
I love your book. Let's give your book a little plug. Do you have one there? Hold it up.
Do I have a copy of it in here?
You can hold up and be like,
just hold on. Let me see if I've got a copy.
Drop a link.
Oh. Totally
That's a really good
unprofessional.
book. Right. So because here you are becoming a writer all of a sudden out of the blue. And here it is. It's called Aching to Be.
That's 21-year-old Joyce.
Oh, 21. I said 22. I was
21,
exactly
22. I don't know, something like that.
There you are.
Yeah.
I'm
And nobody
scared.
has told us who took this photograph yet. Still.
Really? I'm
I've been
surprised.
asking online. So if you know anybody
So
who
if
took
you're
this
watching,
photograph, I'd like to give you credit.
allow me to give you credit.
Right?
Cool. We'll figure that out. We'll hunt that down.
Yes.
So you're a kid, you're touring around, you're being a total rock star, everything's shining and glowing and gorgeous. And how do we go from here to wanting to open people up and talk to them?
I see what you're
What's the
saying.
connection
Yeah,
here?
yeah. Well, I think that the experience that I had with Scarce was pretty unusual.
Sure.
For many reasons. But I had never, like, I'd always played. I played since I was 14. I played by myself. I so desperately wanted to be in a band. I would try out for bands with my bass and my thing on the subway, show up at these rich kids' house, and they'd be like, no, sorry, we don't want to play with you. And then drag myself back on the subway. But for years, I could not find anybody to play with. And that was something that gave me pause, which I want to explore on the Red Jumpsuit. Like, I'm going to interview some of those guys that I was friends with. They were not very supportive of me at that time, or I don't think they were unsupportive, but I don't think they were supportive either. And I couldn't put my finger on it. But like, as I got older, my brother's like, oh yeah, they didn't want to play with you because they didn't want to have a girl in their band. They couldn't pick up girls. And like, what? Like this logic. But I guess that was the case. And then, so when I met Chick, well, actually, before I met Chick, we just recently actually interviewed Tanya. That's going to come out in the new year. Tanya Donnelly and
Legend.
Gail both did the interview
so you did a belly piece.
And what was really cool about that, I'll share this. I can, we'll have the episode out in the new year. But Gail and I had never talked to each other, and she and I were the two contenders to be the bass player for Belly. But we had never spoken to each other all these years. We played shows with Belly, but we never, for whatever reason, we never spoke to each other. And she and I were like two peas in a pod. We were like screaming at each other, like, oh my God, how could we not be friends? And Tanya and Shauna were laughing, like, could they shut up? Like it was like this hilarious whatever. But yeah, I tried out for Belly. And because I knew the drummer, Chris, from my undergrad, well, I had gone to Clark for 2 years in Worcester, and I transferred to RISD, and I ran into him, and he's like, hey, we're auditioning people for this band Belly. And I knew who the Throwing Muses were, and I loved them. I was like, shit, really? I was like, okay, I'm going to try out, because that's what I do. Like, because I'm just like, I really want to play. Let's just do it. I don't think about it. But so I tried out, and I came in second, basically. And then, but the timing of it was I was 20 years old, and I went to, immediately after that, my boyfriend dumped me. It was like one of those, didn't get into Belly, was doing this internship in New York City, and actually working at Spin and Sassy. That was awesome experience.
Sassy.
And at Spin,
the magazine that was too female to survive.
Right. It was amazing. Working on that place.
It was amazing.
It
was way too badass. It was way too badass. It wasn't girly enough to be a girl magazine, and it was too girly to be a boy magazine, and it was way too badass. It was awesome.
It really was awesome. And the people writing for it were amazing. The art director was amazing. But what was funny, at Spin, they were doing a story on Belly. Mm-hmm. And so I was telling I was like, you're drinking coffee or with all the interns. I was like, yeah, I tried out for that band. And they're like, no, you didn't. It's like, yeah, you did it. So you're just going like, all right, how am I going to prove this to anybody? Yeah, I guess I didn't, whatever. I didn't try it out. So anyways, a lot of people didn't know that story until I wrote about it in Aching to Be, that I had actually tried out for that. And then I met Chick, and then Chick called me up while I was there in New York. And I was like, fuck it, I'm never going to play music again. I fucking hate it. My boyfriend, all this bad shit. Fuck it. I'm going to be an artist. And then Chick called me up and he was just like, I want you to be in my band. It's like, who are you? I don't. And then the very first, like I said, About It Being Special is a trio, which is special anyways.
Yep.
And then all three of us sang and played.
Special.
And Judd, who is the drummer, breaks my heart. He has MS now, so he cannot play the drums at all. And he was literally one of the best drummers I've, not just because I played with him, he was phenomenally talented. Write all his drum parts down and shit. It just made it magic between the three of us. Whatever it was, the very first day we played together, we played for 8 hours.
Wow.
And we did our first show like 3 weeks later. It was just very fast.
Mm-hmm.
And then it got really slow because we got sued and yada yada. At any rate, the whole long story longer.
And I'm just going to interject to say, if anybody wants details of these thrilling stories, there it is. I love
the book.
Buy the book.
But yeah, so, and then check out A Brain Hemorrhage. So, you know, it's just like, and yes, in the time we were being interviewed by a ton of people, like MTV was like, you know, you guys are going to be the darlings, the next darling. I mean, we had these people coming to our shows and telling us this shit. And so you fucking believe it, of course, you know, you're like, oh yeah, we're the shit, all this stuff. And then the minute it ends, everybody's like, don't let the door hit you on the way out, you know, like, and I think that experience for me made me very precious about music and precious about like people who are actually trying to do it, because it's very hard. And the amount of,
and maybe a little bit curious as to why they do it.
Right.
Oh,
right.
Look, here we are at How Joyce Became a Critic. I'm going to ask Jamie to run a little ad for the virtual venue. It's cute and silly like us.
Awesome.
And I hope you enjoy.
America, demand your OVV. I want my OVV. I want my OVV. I want my OVV. Your favorite bands, the Once nightclub, all online. Tell your computer, grab your mobile device, tell them, I want my OVV.
So we're Once Somerville. We have an online store. It's called Shopperville. Get it? It's a pretty cool place. You can find our t-shirts, our bumper stickers, which, by the way, say Once Army, smashing the patriarchy since 2015. So you know you want people to be seeing that. Check out Once Shopperville. You can find the link in all of our socials. Please buy something. It helps us, makes you look cool. You rock.
My name is Anjimali, and Once is one of my favorite venues ever. I think the first time I came here was like 2012 with a bunch of kids from Boston University. So this place has a very special place in my heart. Follow hashtag #SaveOurStages to find out how you can help save important, awesome, independent venues like Once.
That was cute.
Aww.
That was really sweet.
I love Anjimali. It's such a pleasure to be around art and musicians, and you really realize the depth of it when you can't do it, you know?
Yeah.
All right. So we were just getting to this place. We just sort of found this place after this very intense round of experiences that left you interested in how other people experience these
Yeah. I mean,
these
I would say that like
moments.
it was a long road to this part because I
Sure.
wrote that book. It took me like 10 years to write that book because it was very
Wow.
painful,
Yeah.
because like I said, once everything ended, it was just like, and you're kind of like, what the fuck am I going to do with my
Yeah. And it
life?
was
And so
very fast.
right, you think that like what you wish for, and we did have that. It was like, oh, these people sweeping us off our feet and da da da, and like chicks signed this deal, but then we got sued, and there's all this stuff that came into it that you're just like, what, and ruins a lot of, at least for me, it ruined a lot of the joy, like after a while. But we had a lot of issues, like mainly that chick had a brain hemorrhage. But, we did a good time. And like I said, it just took me a long while. I did not want to play music after that for a long time. So
Yeah, I know you took a really long break.
I did. I was very heartbroken. You just
Yeah.
kind of, some people bounce back, but I just, I kind of like walked away from it and
Well,
started
it's
doing,
kind of like your house burned down.
yeah. And I starting over again, and very humbly at 28 years old, working for $5 an hour,
Yeah.
learning how to do graphic design. And that's what I did I did book publishing, book design for years in New York and then a little bit in Boston. But that also dried up because, once again, the way the economy is and everything, they don't want people with experience. They don't want to
No.
hire people with experience. And now
Pay you more.
they want to pay the lowest bottom dollar. And so, yeah, it's kind of sad. Like the arts have been experiencing that pre-COVID. Now you add in COVID, and I think, it's just kind of the nail in the coffin a little bit. Sometimes it feels like that. But I'm not ready to give up playing music. You know what I mean? Like that's what's returned to me, which I'm really happy about. It kind of was a long journey. But actually, ironically, doing the red jumpsuit and talking to all these women who play music, I was like, I got to start playing again. And Sean and I started playing again. We just started a new band.
Oh, great. What's it called?
Night Spell is what it's called. Yeah. And it's me, Shauna and Karen, and we're all singing and playing, and I'm playing drums.
Oh,
So that is my instrument right now.
I love playing drums.
I love it too. I remember when you played drums.
I was
You were
told, I think I
good.
told you this before. I was told as a youngster, I was told in my early teens, that I should play drums because I had very good rhythm, and that it was a shame that I couldn't because I'm a girl.
See?
That actually
See
happened.
that? Yeah.
Like that's not even subtle.
Right.
That actually happened.
Right.
This guy being like, wow, you've got really good rhythm. It's too bad you can't play drums because you're a girl. What?
Well, it's never too late, because I started learning how to play drums.
I love playing drums.
When I was going through breast cancer.
Yeah.
I sat down every day and I was like, I'm going to play, and I'm going to learn how to play this instrument. Because I think the drums are, I played bass forever. That was what my instrument was, but I kind of lost my love for it. But ironically, like when I started playing drums, at first it was me and Shauna just playing, the two of us actually. And I was like, oh, we're missing something. The bass.
The bass.
I was like, until I became a drummer, I didn't realize how important the bass was. Irony, huh? Because you need both of them together, especially in a 3-piece. But we're recording actually this weekend, so that's kind of exciting.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. Yeah, like I feel like with the drums, I feel like a teenager again, which feels good. Like, and not in the way like, oh, I want to be young forever. It's just that genuine feeling I had when I was 14, where I was like, I kick ass. I didn't give a shit about what anybody thought of me, and I'm going to do this.
Very cool.
And I think that kind of feeling is what I love about music and music communities.
Do you think that that's something that that decreases as you
get older?
And I'm thinking specifically about as you develop into womanhood and the expectations of behavior in adult women. I'm wondering if that's something that you think gets suppress more than it might with men.
I definitely think so, because I haven't stopped playing music. Like, even when I got married, even when I had kids, I definitely took a break from playing live, but I still played all the time. Because I love it. It brings me joy,
Right.
And I definitely think that, I'm going to have chemo brain here. I apologize. My train of thought is a little scattered, but I just feel
Women
like,
aging out of fearlessness.
no, thank you. And I was going to say, I got a lot of shit for doing that as a mom. And meanwhile, I hear these guys going, "Yeah, we're just playing in our fucking garage, some covers." And I'm like, fuck you. Like, this is my golf. Okay. This is my tennis. This is my craft work, like whatever. I like to play music and do it with friends. And,
But it's true. The guys wouldn't
yeah.
think twice about it.
No. And it's like,
having their band. Oh, they have their band.
Yeah. And I think too, like, to be honest, part of the, I did leave Scarce technically because, there were a lot of reasons, but I fell in love, and this person didn't want to be 3,000 miles away from me all the time. And it was hard, and I didn't have to make a hard decision. I knew I wanted to have kids, and I knew I wanted to have a life. So it was kind of like that choice. And I don't think men have to make that choice.
Interesting.
It's different.
It is definitely different. I was just thinking that, having had also, had kids, going through school with kids, knowing other moms, I was just thinking, as you said that I definitely have met dads through my kids' schools who've been like, "Oh, I still have a band. We get together once a month," or whatever. Or, "Oh, I was in a band." I can think of so many dads. "Oh, I was in a band. Whatever."
Right.
I can't think of a single mom that I have ever met through my kids who either said, "I was in a band" or "I have a band." I cannot think of one.
I haven't met one.
Me and you.
And you and me. That's it.
And Tanya.
And Tanya. I'm sorry, Tanya. Yeah, no.
But my kids didn't go to school with her kids. So but I'm thinking like, I'm thinking like people who I went through this experience, this education experience
in the 90s,
kids, and you go to meetings with them, and you stand by the river while your kid rows crew or whatever it is.
Right.
You go to the school play, the talent show, and you talk to people. And I'm just thinking, I don't think there was ever a woman who said, and they knew I was into music.
Right. Right.
It's pretty evident. And I would show up in a band shirt or whatever. And
what's crazy about it to me, JJ, is like, it should be celebrated. It should be like, "Oh my God, that's really cool and interesting." But the reaction I always get from people is like, "Oh, you're still doing that?"
Aren't you a little old for that?
Oh. I'm just like, fuck you. No, I'm just kidding.
Right.
No.
Pretty much.
But you do feel like, kind of like I said, I actually feel like, in a weird way, and I don't know if this is because now my kids are old enough, just like yours, to be on their own and do their own thing. And I'm not having to like be down on their, jumping down on them all the time. They're their own people. And I've suddenly now gotten back into music. It's interesting that the timing of it, that I actually have the time now. Because before I didn't. I was working like 80 hours a week.
Right.
Trying to make meat, trying to pay for preschool, trying to pay for, the mortgage, trying to pay. It's like, you got to survive.
Right.
And now we're finally in this place, like, ironically, we can't go anywhere, but, it's like, I'm back to that, like, hey, I'm having fun playing. Like last night, Sean and I we worked on the songs that we're going to record on Friday. And it was just wonderful because I was like, the election was just bumming me out. I was like, I'm going to go down. I'm going to play drums right now. And that is what a lot of people are missing right now.
Are you playing together in person, or are you playing on?
Oh, yeah. So I should tell you that Shauna moved in to our bubble
Oh, good.
early on.
Good. So you really do get to play.
Yes.
That's great.
Yeah, because
That's great.
she got kicked out of a place and like needed a
That's
place.
great.
We have a basement and I got laid off. So it was like, perfect. Awesome.
This
But
is the
yeah,
best reason for a band and a podcast.
exactly. And it's like, what's fun about it
Ain't no
is like,
stopping us now.
yeah, you can just, I mean, I really, at this point for me, it's not about anything more than me enjoying the music. Like at this point, and I think that's why I started interviewing people, because I wanted to interview people who are doing it now and like, see how it's changed, but also interview people who were doing it when I was doing it and just have that community without having to play out.
Do you think it's easier
You
for
know?
women now?
I think there's more opportunity, but maybe not. I don't know, because it's interesting. I talked about that on this Dorsing podcast. This woman Cassie Fox, who, if you want to follow someone fun on Facebook,
Spell Dorson.
Dorsing is DORISING. That's the name of the podcast. I'll send it to you.
All right.
But Cassie Fox runs it, and she's just this super amazing person who started out like the Whistle Stop Ladies, was like, let's just have shows, and we'll all play for each other. That was how it started. And now she has this whole international thing online where they have these international lineups where they're like, somebody from France and somebody from, and it's this beautiful thing. And sort of like this idea of like being a part of that. And they like immediately was like, Joyce, Red Jumpsuit, come on in. You're part of our community. Just like the Whistle Stop Ladies, you're part of our community. And I think that's what I'm seeing right now that I love. Like, is women supporting other women and being like, fuck it. If they're not going to give us the opportunities to do it, then we're going to build those opportunities.
Right.
And so I think part of the interviewing thing is, I don't think women get interviewed as much as men, especially even when there's women in the bands.
I think that's true.
They tend towards talking to the guys and talking about the same bands over and over. Yes, I love the Replacements. Yes, I love all these bands, but come on. There's other bands out there.
I think not just that. I mean, this is what I was saying before. I think that women don't take the space, right? So even if there's a woman in the band, it's more likely that the men are going to be talking and the women aren't necessarily going to be taking the space.
Yes.
But so I was noticing on a Facebook 80s hardcore bands Facebook page, and people were posting these flyers, and like, wow, what a great lineup that was. What a great lineup that was. What a great. And I was looking at them and I posted on one of these, I said, was there a single woman on that bill? And the response I got was, I was just trying to talk about a show I liked.
Right.
I'm like, really? So you're not even open to this conversation.
Right. That's what it is. They're not even open to the conversation.
Sure. So you're posting about a show you liked, and that was a great lineup, and that's really cool. But can we just for 1 second stop
and think
to
about
recognize on that 6-band bill, there was not a single woman who took that stage that day.
Yep.
Not one. And that is pretty usual. And, I can say from running a venue, not a lot of women. Why? What are the reasons? And we've talked about this before. What are those reasons? They're not encouraged from childhood. You can't play drums because you're a girl.
And the press doesn't write about them as nearly as much. I mean, and so what I was going to tell you, JJ, is like part of our idea for the Red Jumpsuit was to be a platform that supports women in music. Right. So like, interviewing people and giving them a platform to launch off of, like, not that like I know so many people, but like, welcoming them in, let's build a community and be a part of the bigger community, because we need to do that. Like that's, and I think those opportunities are not happening. So the women are building it now. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the difference between the 80s, 90s and now. And a lot of girls, like, I mean, I don't know. It's a mixture, because we still very much have the patriarchy and the Trump and the sexist, homophobic. But I guess, like at the end of the day, right, you can't change these people's minds. So like, let's build our community.
So do
And,
you
you
find
know,
are the women eager to talk to you?
yeah, it's cool. You know, like everybody that we interviewed, it was interesting. And we did like 20 interviews, which is why we slowed down in the first year. And we were like just joking about this thing. Like it was just like, whatever, we'll see. But we did it through people we knew. So like, that's why we were able to get a lot of people at first. But after 20, we were just like, we need to take a break and play music. Because it was like, the whole idea was like, while we're waiting for the music to come, we'll do this. So like, you know, we're definitely slowing it down now and changing the format a little bit and just opening it up to having men in the discussion, because I don't want to just talk to women about it. I want to talk to my male friends about it because they've never had to think about it. It's one of those privileged, white boy privilege things, I think.
No, I think that's great. I think that's a really
You
interesting.
know, and so it's Shauna's idea. And I thought
So-
it was brilliant because
And
that
you've
was what
done
missing,
one?
you know.
You've done one so far?
We've only done one of those so far, but I have a few lined up. We just have to catch up with the editing because we're all, you know, like my husband does the editing and he's working and as a teacher right now, and it's crazy.
It's
So
too much.
we have to wait for the vacations to happen right now.
Thanksgiving's coming.
Thanksgiving's coming. Yeah.
Oh boy, oh boy.
But yeah, I really do, like, I can't tell you how many times, and I asked everybody on the show, what I found really interesting was all these women I played on shows with or met, but didn't know very well, were all feeling the same way I was and saying, I got treated like shit. And guys were always coming on to me, and guys were always like up in my face and harassing me and following me into the bathroom and shit like that. And like, you had to watch yourself. And it wasn't easy. You know, I mean, you know, you're there too. And it was, you had to be really smart and you had to be on your guard because it was not necessarily a place you wanted to be on stage, maybe, but you know.
You toured a lot.
We did.
And you toured all over the world.
Not quite, but I would say, yeah, we did a good amount of touring, you know.
A lot of time in Europe.
Yeah. Europe and England and Canada and the United States. But
do you feel like there was a different attitude towards you as a woman on tour in Europe? Could you?
Oh, yes. Europe. So much. I mean, like, I never really want to tour in America ever again if I don't have to, which I don't, thankfully.
I was going to say,
because
that wish.
Exactly. And because of COVID, there you go. But if were not for COVID, I would, you know, we did go back over and play shows in England and Europe in 2008 when I released the book and everything. And it was just wonderful. These people didn't forget you, you know, like it's much more of a true fan base where they're like, you know, they buy my books, they buy paintings for me, like, you know.
I feel like though that it's more acceptable for a woman to be on stage.
Yeah, I think.
I'm not sure.
You know what it is?
Artist, those seem to me to be areas where women are more accepted.
Yeah, in Europe, you mean?
Yeah, well, in general.
Yeah, I think that I felt like in Europe, people were so cool there, like, you know, as far as, and we played like shows for like very little people and then 3,000 seaters when we opened up for Hull. And I can honestly say they were just so cool to us. Like, you know, you get good beer, you get sandwiches, you get fresh towels, you know, like chocolate, you know, like just like common decency.
Yeah.
They have showers, like, you know, it's, and then besides all that, the people who come to the shows come up and talk to you. And you can have this whole hangout and we're going to take you out on our town. I don't think that happens very much in America. People are like, yeah, no, I'm not going home with you. Like, no, you know. So it's just like a different feeling.
Not anymore anyway.
Not anymore, maybe, you know, like, but we were lucky. I feel like that was the one thing. We just had so much fun, like on the road, you know, it was so much fun in Europe.
And it was more fun in Europe.
way
never
more
got
fun
to
in
go
Europe.
there.
I think in America, it's just so big. And like, it's interesting now the way people did tour until COVID. Like Courtney Barnett, for instance, who I think is amazing. I just love her. And she did all these very targeted places. And I thought that was really smart. You know, it was like just to the places where people were, and then it grew from there. But it would seem like they had a very good approach to it, to America.
Yourself around on a 3-week.
Yeah. And trying different areas. And then it just grows, you know, like the more you're out there, the more it grows. And yeah, I mean, I do feel really bad right now for artists because unlike us, where we had a lot of time in clubs, you know, theirs cut short, you know, and I'm hoping and praying that like everything, because the world needs music. I know that sounds so 1970s, but
Well, I think the world definitely does need music. I think actually that it's really remarkable how much music is being created in people's personal spaces. I think it's really amazing. I mean, a lot of people are doing really good work. I wonder if it's easier for women to produce music
virtually
and not to have to be confronted by the kind of attitude that shuts you down. You know,
it's
if you walk
interesting.
into a club and all these men are like,
Right.
and you sort of feel like this, as opposed to like if nobody's doing that to you,
Right. And it's your show.
it's your show.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's something that we'll see is empowering more women to
I hope
make
so.
music.
I mean,
hope so
yeah,
too.
I hope so.
I hope
And
so too. I feel like there's a lot
yeah.
of it's so subtle, you know, like I said, like just looping back to that interview or that panel I did a couple days ago where I was so like, how dare they? How dare they? And I realized it was me. I was giving them that space, and it made me really think about
Right. What is our responsibility?
what is our responsibility?
Yeah.
But it's exhausting to have to be tough.
It
We
is.
shouldn't have to do that. We shouldn't have to
Yeah.
move our space. We shouldn't have to be
Right.
counter to our nature to be even included at an equal level. That's
Right. And I think the difference that I notice, like, and I'm probably just thinking girls rock or like, you know, like the whistle stop and the loud women, my friend Cassie, like what they're doing is so cool. And to me, it's right on. It's supportive. It's like they're all cheering each other on. And to me, it's like none of us are making millions off of this. We do it because we love it. And so there's our audience.
Making millions off of it.
Right. And like, I just find that I've been really excited seeing, like, I've done a bunch of book events online and it's been really fun, you know, like it was great. Cool. You know, it wasn't the same, but I really enjoyed it still. Like it was still that human contact. And I think there's so much of it going on that people don't necessarily know where to look sometimes, but you know, you find your path. Like, you know, you have your like, you know, there's so much music out there. Like you were saying, there's room for everyone to have their own little pod, you know, and maybe like you're only playing to your friends. Who cares? You know, like I think music is communication. And when it's used well, it moves people. Like, I mean, Matt and I have been playing guitar together, getting drunk and playing guitar up and together, like while all this stress is going on. And it was just this feeling of like, okay, singing together, like joy, you know, joy is missing from our world right now.
Yes.
You know, just that joy of like, fuck it, I'm going out tonight and we're going to have a good time. You know, like, it's like, we just have to reinvent that good time for a little while, but it doesn't mean it's going to go on forever. And like you and I know, being older, things do come to an end.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's true. It's so true. Oh,
Anyways,
I
good stuff. I'm feeling hopeful. People think I'm crazy like that, but I feel like a lot of
think it
cool
works.
stuff is coming out. And I think people are getting an opportunity to level the playing field. I do think it's a little time right now where people are going to have a chance to level a little bit of the playing field.
Yeah,
That's what I'm hoping for.
I hope so too.
And I feel like the red jumpsuit is just a tiny part of that. Like, I don't think we're going to make change, but I feel good about it, doing it, because it's like, okay, well, I've just opened another place for women to feel comfortable and talk about what they're doing.
Yeah.
And I want to do things where like we talked to you, where you're like, you were a club owner too, and all this stuff. And I kind of want to, talk more to like other genres, not just music, but arts, where women are involved in leadership. And, like you said, how do we change that conversation?
Yeah.
Because we're fucking done. I'm sorry, I didn't curse, but we're just done. We're done. Like you said, why do we have to make the space? Okay, we have to make the space. Let's just do it.
We have to teach ourselves that we don't have to do that.
Right.
And isn't that kind of harder even? Well, maybe not harder, but it's part of it is teaching other people or teaching men, teaching other people, but also teaching ourselves.
Right.
That it's okay for us to take up some space.
Right.
Like having a podcast or a band or writing a book, because you are awesome in so many ways.
And just exciting news. I can't share the details, but I just wrote my first screenplay.
Oh.
But I can't tell you about it, but we are going to probably be shooting a movie in a year.
That's very exciting.
But like I said, I'm sworn to secrecy.
Until then, Red Jumpsuit Podcast. And
yes, Red Jumpsuit Podcast at you can gmail.com if you want to, say hello, and redjumpsuitpodcast.com to see our website. And if you want to be interviewed, send us some music. We'd love to talk to you. Yeah.
If you want to be musicked.
And you have to be a lady, though. Sorry.
Oh. If you're a rockin' lady.
Yep. If you're a rockin' lady, give me a call.
1-800 Red.
Remember the old phones, man? I feel like I miss the old phones with the little.
Oh, I know.
I miss payphones too. I don't know why. I liked payphones. Put your quarter in.
Easier times.
And I have my little phone book that I have to get out and find who I know in Cincinnati.
Can I tell you? I remember doing a major label record deal negotiation on the phone with the lawyer from a payphone in Nebraska and pumping the dimes.
Yeah, you're like, oh no, they're gonna hang up on me.
Does anybody have a quarter? I'm gonna lose it's so hard to get this guy on the phone.
I know.
Yep. Because women can negotiate contracts too. So
yes, they can.
I want to thank you, my dear friend Joyce Raskin. Thank you for being here today.
I always love hanging out with you, JJ. And
I love hanging out with you.
You guys, please buy those t-shirts, buy stuff, and support the club because it will open again. I mean, I feel optimistic that we'll make something happen. But, obviously right now, you can get an extra couple $20, put on a new t-shirt, because what else do you have to wear in the house now? If you haven't done the laundry.
That's right. You never have too many t-shirts.
Exactly. Right? I got a whole drawer full of them.
Exactly. Totally. Thanks for being here, my friend.
Thank you.
It's great to see you. And I'll look forward to seeing you again soon.
Okay.
Thanks for joining me today.
Bye-bye.